Hi, welcome. I'm Helmut Licht. Thank you for joining me for this 13th video in a series of videos called My God Here, There, Everywhere. And please recall that all my reasoning is based on the following 5 statements. I would like to make 3 observations. A. One single kernel of corn, after being planted, will grow into a stalk, which does not look at all like a corn, is much bigger than the original kernel, and has on it several ears of corn, on which are many kernels of corn, which look pretty much like the original kernel of corn. B. A boy, and it could just as well be a girl, grows up. At a certain age, he attends school, becomes head of the student body, and perhaps captain of the baseball team. He graduates, marries, has children, and also works for a company. He moves up the company ladder and eventually becomes president. He runs for city government, is elected mayor, after a few years governor, and with much luck and help from fate, president of the country. C. A drop of water falls as a raindrop from the sky. It falls into and becomes part of a brook, moves with the brook into a lake, from where it travels through pipes into a city's water purification system. Its next journey is through a network of water pipes into a home, more specifically into a glass of drinking water. From the glass it moves into the body of a human being who drinks the water. It is purified by the kidney and enters into the bloodstream, serving as a carrier of various life-supporting substances and surplus material. It is discharged from the human body and becomes a part of sewer water. From there it evaporates into the air and rises into a cloud. The cloud enters a region of cold air, and the water drop changes into a snowflake and dances to the ground. I believe that every intelligence center is a seed which carries with it all the experiences it undergoes as it controls the various CUs. But not every seed gets an opportunity to reproduce. As a matter of fact, very few do. In nature, there are innumerable levels of existence. From our human perspective, we have below us the molecular level, below that the atomic, then the subatomic, ever decreasing in size toward the microscopic infinity. Above us, we have the solar system level, the galactic level, and so forth, ever increasing in size toward the macroscopic infinity. An evolving intelligence center gains and records experiences on a certain level, and upon entering the next higher, or possibly even the next lower level of existence, brings these recorded experiences with it and uses them as a foundation on which to build. This foundation will determine what sort of CUs it will attract and gather around itself. Let's take a closer look at what happens to the kernel of corn. 2 things can happen to it. It falls on fertile ground, gets planted, and becomes a stalk, which doesn't look at all like the kernel, is much larger than the original kernel, and has on it several ears of corn made up of hundreds of kernels of corn again. The same kinds of kernels as the one from which the stalk grew. I call this specific evolution. It does not get planted, which means it will not be able to reproduce its species. How many kernels of corn from a given harvest are chosen for planting? given a chance to transmute into a more complex being. And how many never get that chance but rather end up as feed in a can, in the frozen food section of a supermarket, in a pot of boiling water, fall prey to insects, rot away somewhere, end up as popcorn or breakfast cereal, or get crushed into cornmeal? The odds are tremendous. I call this non-specific evolution because the intelligence center is still evolving. As experiences gained are never lost. However, it was denied an opportunity to evolve within its own species. We humans are seeds, every one of us. Our stalk is Mother Earth. Where corn is grouped together in rows on ears, we are grouped together on continents as races and nations. We are also subject to either specific or non-specific evolution. Neither is better or worse than the other. As in nature, everything is always natural. Let us suppose that the intelligence center which rules a human being is to evolve specifically. What would have to happen? Let's reread 191. A. And apply it to the human level, shown in square brackets. It falls on fertile ground, a certain environment after death, gets planted, serves as seed, and becomes a stalk, planet, which doesn't at all look like the kernel, human being, is much, much larger than the original kernel, human being, and has on it several ears of corn, races, nations, made up of hundreds of kernels of corn, human beings again. The same kinds of kernels, human beings, as the one from which the stalk planet grew. For the sake of clarity, let me rewrite 194, this time without corn, no pun intended. After death, the human intelligence center, soul, is attracted into a new environment and there serves as a seed to a new planet on which there will evolve human beings grouped into nations and races. If this sounds implausible to you, let's look briefly at a human sperm, from which, when joined with a female egg, you, the reader, came. Does a sperm look like a human being? Is it the size of a human being? No, but it will go into another environment, another human body, and there serve as a seed for a human body which doesn't look like it at all, is much, much larger, and will once again produce many, many sperms, provided it is a male body. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the ratio of one sperm to a human body is almost the same as that of a human body to a planet. I don't know. Now let's look at non-specific human evolution. I stated earlier that an evolving intelligence center gains and records experiences on a certain level and, upon entering the next higher or possibly even next lower level of existence, brings these recorded experiences with it and uses them as a foundation on which to build, to evolve further. This foundation will determine what sort of CUs, units of consciousnesses, it will attract and gather around itself. Life on this planet, no matter how brief, will add to the intelligence center's experience and enrich it respectively, and upon leaving this earthly existence, its eternal makeup will be different from the one it started with. As C.Z. Zane, author of the 21 Brotherhood of Light lessons, would say, its dominant vibratory frequency has changed. At physical death, the controlling intelligence center ceases to control the CUs it had attracted around itself, that which we call the physical body, and releases itself from them. This can be compared to a large company going out of business. The various departments, organs, will be operative for a while to complete unfinished business and will appear to be operating as usual, but sooner or later they too will cease to exist. The moment the employees hear that the company is closing, they will look for another job along their line of qualification. The Freed Intelligence Center can now be compared to a radio signal of a certain frequency radiating into space. Any environment which could be thought of as a radio receiver, which happens to be tuned to that particular frequency, exists on the same frequency, can now pick up the Intelligence Center's signal, setting the stage for another birth, incarnation, which will at the outset be similar to the Broadcasting Intelligence Center previous one. The Intelligence Center has found a new potential environment, even environments, and uses whatever CUs are available in those environments to build itself a new body, which is really nothing more than a larger or smaller amount of CUs gathering around it. To explain why I used the word potential in the last paragraph, let me describe this process in another way. Imagine an expert carpenter being recorded live in a television studio as he gives step-by-step instructions on how to build a small table. He will have two audiences. One, those people who happen to be present at the studio, and two, anybody within, let's say, a 100-mile radius, depending on how powerful the station is. Let's further assume that within that 100-mile radius, 3,000 people happen to be listening to this program. Out of these 3,000 people, there are 30 who are carpenters and have the television set in their basement, on their workbench. 10 of these 30 carpenters are recording the program on a video cassette, as they do not have all the necessary material on hand. The remaining 20 have the required material and tools and are building the table right along with the live instructions coming from the television. This is the total picture. One person who gives the instructions, 3,000 people who hear the instructions, 30 people who are carpenters, 20 carpenters who are building the table as instructions are being given, 5 people who could build the table at a later point in time, taped. What really happened here was that the creative potential, the idea of the small table, was sent out into space and found a sympathetic response, people who saw the show in 3,000 environments. 20 of these turned out to be immediately congenial environments, carpenters who had the necessary material and tools, where it was reproduced right away. There were an additional 5 potentially congenial environments, carpenters who did not have the material but taped the show and could build the table at some other time. The television station's broadcasting range was limited by its sending power to a 100-mile radius. However, what is to prevent one of those people who taped the show from sending a copy of the tape to members of a carpenter hobby club to which he belongs? And we could also have the television station offer copies of the program for a nominal fee, as is frequently done. Both cases represent potentials for further reproduction of the idea of the table. As all intelligence is of and with my God, who is infinite and only one, all intelligent activity is, through this oneness with my God, immediately broadcast through all of existence. Again, this broadcast is instantaneous. Let's go back to our intelligence center mentioned in 199. It is now broadcasting itself through its oneness with my God, through all of creation, similar to the carpenter show. Somewhere in this infinite universe, one or more sympathetic responses will be struck, and more or less congenial environments will be provided, in which the intelligence center can attract to itself CUs and continue its evolution. Another table will be built, so to speak. Some tables will be made from oak, some from pine. One of the carpenters in the audience may decide to make it larger, give it stronger legs, or perhaps add some side panels which fold down. The reproduced tables will not be exactly as the original because they have to fit into respective environments and meet its new requirements. To give you a more down-to-earth example of how non-specific evolution works, think of the Freed Intelligence Center as a blacksmith. During his life experience, he has developed skills manipulating a hammer and shaping metal. Look at his death as immigration into another country. In the new country, there is no need for a blacksmith, but there is plenty of work for carpenters and painters. Chances are that with his developed hammering skills, the blacksmith will switch to the carpenter trade rather than the painting trade, as much of a carpenter's work has to do with hammering. I believe that this Earth of ours is controlled by one single intelligence center, which has attracted to itself all that which constitutes this Earth. To give you a more down-to-earth example of how non-specific evolution works, think of the Freed Intelligence Center as a blacksmith. During his life experience, he has developed skills manipulating a hammer and shaping metal. Look at his death as immigration into another country. In the new country, there is no need for a blacksmith, but there is plenty of work for carpenters and painters. Chances are that with his developed hammering skills, the blacksmith will switch to the carpenter trade rather than the painting trade, as much of a carpenter's work has to do with hammering. As this Earth is truly the mother of all that lives on it, including you and me, I call its ruling intelligence center and its body, the planet Earth, my super mother. Helmut Licht is my natural mother. The Earth is my super mother. All those people related to me through my family tree are my natural family. The human race is my immediate superfamily. All things living on this planet make up my general superfamily. You may wonder how one infinitesimal small intelligence center can control something as huge as this planet Earth, even the sun, not to mention a galaxy. And once again I answer, in the same way that one tiny human being called President controls a huge nation called United States of America. Physically speaking, the President could not control more than one other person, but through an elaborate system called government, he can reach and potentially control any individual or all people making up the United States. Mother Earth has such a government. We are not too familiar with it, but it exists. How would Mother Earth communicate with you or me? You and I are an integral part of her. We are part of her body. You would not communicate verbally with the arm, would you? You think raise, and your arm rises in the air. You think clap, and your two hands clap together. Mother Earth communicates the same way. Many of our actions are direct responses to her thinking. Individual actions as well as national actions, though we think that they spring from our own initiative. I believe that in Mother Earth's game of chess, mankind represents only one of the figurines. and not necessarily the king or queen, as we would like to believe, but perhaps just one of the pawns, possibly under certain conditions very dispensable within the larger picture. Nature is always perfect. Only our attitude toward her and our personal condition and expectations make her appear imperfect. The air pollution is natural because it is produced by nature. Mankind may not be able to live in a severely polluted environment, but other forms of life will prosper in it. Who is to say the little specks of life who call themselves the human race are important to Mother Earth, at least more important than any other group of specks of life? If, on the other hand, Mother Earth does not like her air and water polluted, and does not like blemishes, cities on her skin, and decides that her natural balance and her personal beauty is at risk because of these little bacteria who call themselves humans, what do you suppose could she do? What do you do when a virus threatens your good health? Either of two things. You develop antibodies who will seek and destroy the virus, and who are as much a natural part of your physical body as the threatening virus, or you get medicine which will hopefully accomplish the same task. The antibodies would be produced by Mother Earth to fight against us. The medicine would come from an external source, and its purpose would also be to eradicate us. We must treat all nature as our family and learn to communicate with her. We should honor her with respect and live in harmony, good health, with her and the other members of the family. We should guard against turning into a virus, because Mother Earth's actions against us would be swift, total, and irreversible. Most of all, we must not deceive ourselves into believing that we are special. We are not. We are special only to the extent that we are a member of the family, a part of Mother Earth's body, but we are no more special than the forests, winds, and oceans. As long as we live in harmony with Mother Earth, we are necessary. As soon as we live in disharmony, we become undesirable and dispensable. If we become a diseased or a disease-creating part of her body, she will cut us out. At times, I even feel that the sum total of all creatures on this planet who have a brain represent the Earth's brain, and that the Earth represents the Sun's brain, and our solar system houses our galactic brain. Before you go, I would like to show you a few pieces of my art. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Thank you for your interest, and I will see you in my next video. Have a wonderful day.